Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the COVID Long Haulers podcast. We're a community of COVID long haulers who've been brought together by this illness and wanted to create this resource for other long haulers. We share the stories of folks who've been through it, who are going through it, and how they're surviving it. My name is Jessie, and I will be your host for this episode, along with Emerson. Hello, Emerson.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode where we'll be doing things a little differently. With the holiday season upon us, we wanted to shift focus from interviews to explore what the season feels like for those of us dealing with long COVID. So, we'll be talking about the unique challenges many of us face and discussing ways to cope, adapt, and still find moments of joy during this time of year.
To capture a wide range of experiences, we surveyed the community and 58 long haulers responded. The results are striking. Nearly 48% are dreading the holiday season this year, and another 28% feel overwhelmed or stressed about it. That means 3 out of 4 people surveyed have more negative than positive feelings as the holidays approach.
It's very clear that this is not just about Jesse and me. These experiences resonate widely within the long COVID community. So let's dive in, explore these perspectives, and talk about strategies that might make the season a little more manageable for all of us.
For those of you who don't know us yet, I'm Jessie. I'm 39. I've had pretty much every long COVID symptoms that's possible to have, but my main issues right now are POTS, migraines, chronic pain, fatigue, exacerbated by things I ingest. So I have an extremely limited diet. I've been long hauling for over 2 years now.
And I'm Emerson. I'm 21 years old, and I have all the typical long COVID symptoms of severe fatigue, brain fog, post-exertional malaise, POTS, and relevant now in the colder months, I have pretty severe Raynaud's syndrome as well. I've been long hauling for about 1.5 years now, and if you want to know more about my long COVID journey, you can check out our third episode called Emerson is Lost. So, if you're a friend or a family member of a long hauler and you're asking yourself, why exactly are the holiday seasons stressful for us long haulers, then I just wanted to show you the survey results because the results are very, very clear. The number one most stressful aspect of the holiday season for us long haulers is protecting ourselves from reinfection at 83%. The second most stressful aspect is a tie between feeling the need to act normal around others and the lack of understanding we get from others. And the third most stressful aspect is family gatherings, and that is likely related to number one and number two, the lack of being able to protect ourselves from reinfection and the lack of understanding we get. Financial pressure is also of note at 41%, since many long haulers can't earn an income due to their symptoms. And many are also concerned about overstimulation with lights, fireworks, people talking all over each other. Just all the stimuli that we experience during a family gathering can be a lot to deal
Mhm.
with.
Yeah.
So, looking at all of this data, Jesse, what are some concrete examples that we struggle with?
From the survey results, we see people say like difficult family situations. These are problems that exist all year round, right? But they're just exacerbated during the holidays because we all want to get together with our loved ones, friends, and family. We're a different
Yeah.
person than who we were before. Our families struggle to see that, and they don't quite understand our fears around the risk of worsening our symptoms through post exertional malaise or PEM crash or a reinfection. And they also can't comprehend our new disabled reality of living in a body that no longer works the way it has in the past. So, for example, my past experience with Christmas, since we celebrate Christmas where I am and with my family, is a lot of overstimulation, a lot of noise, a lot of food that I can't eat.
Yeah.
A lot of people coming in and out of houses that I don't know what their level of precaution is or what germs they might bring. So, in addition to the sort of immediate worry of how can I protect myself, there's also all that stimulation and activity that causes like severe fatigue afterwards.
hmm
And so I definitely have had really long PEM crashes after the holidays.
Yeah. This is only my second Christmas with long COVID. Last Christmas was my first Christmas dealing with it. And honestly, even before long COVID, I always found the holidays rather stressful. My family gatherings are really big. 12 or 13 people squeeze into a small living room. So it
Mm,
gets loud and chaotic and just
yeah.
overstimulating really quickly. And last year I ended up leaving early simply because I couldn't handle all of the stimuli and all the loud people talking and the heat and the smells. And trying to explain why is really hard, right? Because with something like long COVID, you don't look different, you look fine, you look the same as to before. You're not walking around with a cast or visibly ill, but inside, everything about you feels different. It's like your entire being has been rewired. And a lot of people just don't get it. They don't understand what post-viral illness is or how it disables. And I think this also ties in with the fact that so many people, pretty much everyone at this point, has had COVID, but not everyone has developed long COVID. And they'll be like, oh, why? You had such a mild infection. Why has it disabled you, but not me? It can't be that bad, blah,
Hmm.
blah, 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 blah. And this is something that affects many long haulers. I think pretty much every long hauler has experienced this in some way or other. The lack of accommodations is really frustrating too. There's this massive pressure to act normal, as in before you were sick, and to push through and not let everyone down, but that just makes everything worse. And then on top of all of that, you have all of the unsolicited advice of, oh, but have you tried yoga yet? Maybe if you just went out more, fresh air, blah, 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 blah. And
Think
that is just, yeah,
positively.
that is just so exhausting and dismissive. It's like all of a sudden everyone just has a PhD in medicine, right?
Oh, and also psychiatry. It's really tough because you love these people and they don't understand what you're dealing with this post-viral illness.
Yeah. And I think there's also just some people who don't want to understand to some extent. Like there are some people who want to learn and do better, and there are some who are just blissfully ignorant. Like they are
Hmm.
happy being in the state of ignorance.
Yeah, it's just like a more comfortable place to be. Like I wish I could be there sometimes.
Yeah,
And
same.
and that's part of the strained relationship that we'll talk about later in the podcast. There's differences in COVID consciousness. There's these disagreements about the severity of our illness. And because, as you said, Emerson, we might look the same, but we experience the world completely different now. And then additionally, symptoms are stopping us from being able to properly participate at all or needing accommodation that we might not get from someone. So it becomes really
Hmm.
visible when we look at the responses from the survey. The top three symptoms long haulers worry about during their holiday sort of get togethers, 88% say fatigue, likely because of what we've already discussed, the sensory stimulation,
Yeah.
overstimulation, lots of people, lots of activities. 64% brain fog, cognitive impairment, 57% sensory sensitivity, which for me relates to those other two.
Hmm. It kind
And
of all
then,
comes together to be like one massive disaster, in my
yeah,
experience.
exactly. It's a perfect storm. And then there's also the long haulers expressing concern that our family, they're not taking precautions and that we'll get reinfected. And there's so much evidence that says it's bad for us to get reinfected, not just with COVID, but with other viruses. It
Hmm.
can make our symptoms so much worse. We're trying so hard to just stay afloat, to get back to some level of recoveredness of ability, of happiness and joy, of living our life again. But at any moment, we can get infected from someone who's not careful, and that can take us right back down to the worst symptoms. And that's
Yeah.
just really not something that I'm willing to sacrifice for a gathering.
And I think on top of that, as mentioned before, there's just such a lack of understanding and accommodations. In the survey, 30% of long haulers said that they feel that their family rarely or never understands or accommodates their limitations. And only 15% of long haulers said that they feel like their family actually completely understands and accommodates them. And that's just depressing that only
Mm.
15% felt that kind of comfort.
Yeah, it's really tough to experience the world in such a different way, and you
Hmm.
can't really express that to others in a way that they'll understand. And then you get the, why do you need it that way? Or, you just need to exercise or, whatever unhelpful advice. So it can feel really isolating and lonely. One quote that really stood out from this part of the survey, I can hardly leave my room. I can't afford gifts or have the energy to make a simple card. And that's just so
That is,
heartbreaking.
it is. It is so heartbreaking. That reality in of itself is devastating. And then if this person is also experiencing social pressure from friends or family to force themselves to do things that will make their symptoms worse through a crash or through a flare, then it's just horrible. My heart goes out to that person.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some strategies today
Yeah.
for navigating these kinds of situations, how we can ask for accommodations, ask for people around us to help keep us safe so that we can enjoy the holidays with them.
And besides these like strained family relationships or this kind of pressure to act normal together with the lack of accommodations and understanding, is that we also have extra chores that we have to complete, right? If we're going to have people over or going to go visit people, we have to cook, we have to clean, we have to prepare Christmas presents, cook dinner, even if we're going to visit someone else. Since so many of us have a very limited diet, we likely have to bring our own food. And then there's also the aspect of traveling. For a lot of long haulers, traveling is extremely exhausting, be it by airplane or by train or by car. It's just really hard to get to somewhere else, specifically if it's a longer trip, like a couple of hours, or if you're
Hmm.
even the one having to drive the vehicle, like if you have to drive your car yourself,
Mm,
it's
no,
horrible.
thank you. No,
I could
thank you.
not do that. Yeah. And something else I was thinking about is that, you know, not only traveling there, like going from A to B is tough, but also just preparing to get there. Because for a lot of us, things like showering, getting dressed, brushing our teeth,
Hmm.
brushing our hair is extremely exhausting. And these are all things we have to do to be able to attend a social gathering, right? And if you have the added stress of you have to do that before you take a 2 hour long car drive or take a plane, or you have to do that in a hotel or in a family member's house where you don't have access to your disability aids, like your shower stool, in order to shower, that just
Hmm.
makes these already horribly exhausting and painful chores even more exhausting. And then on top of that, you have to go to an exhausting family dinner. Gosh.
Yeah, it's like it before we got sick, we never had to consider all of these
Yeah.
factors of all these extra
Yeah.
obstacles and logistics, but now every single factor or
Yeah.
every what is the
Every
word?
step to get there, every tiny little thing, getting out of
Yeah.
bed, getting dressed, taking a
Those are
shower,
things we have
brushing
to
your
account
teeth.
for.
Yeah, and those are things that if you follow spoon theory, take up an exponential amount of spoons. Like often after I had completed all these tasks to get out of the house, like brushing my teeth, brushing my hair, washing my face, etc., getting dressed, there were no spoons left to go anywhere else. So I just went back to bed fully dressed, ready to go out. And you can't go back to bed if you have this family gathering or like Christmas dinner to get to.
Yeah, or if it's at your house
Yeah.
and you're dressed up, but you're in bed and everyone's wondering where you are, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm hiding. So, one of the quotes from the survey that really illustrates this, they said, "It's difficult for me to concentrate for long periods of time. And with family about 2.5 hours away, I have to concentrate to get there, and to be there can be overwhelming."
Hmm.
And that sounds like for someone who's never experienced this, you can't relate to it. So just believe us when we say that, that every little choice that you make to leave the house that you don't even realize you're making, you might even like it's so automatic to you, that's very different for people that have fatigue or post-exertional malaise or some of the other
Hmm.
sensory problems, because it's almost like we have to run a marathon in order to attend this event.
Yeah. And then the event in of itself is another marathon or Ironman or something like that. And then you have to get back home again, which is
Yep. Oh,
another issue.
goodness.
But I guess moving on from all the logistical areas, the lack of COVID awareness was something that a lot of people spoke about in the survey. That's why we want to read a couple of the quotes that we got because they really illustrate how difficult these situations are in regard to like COVID safety.
I was really pleasantly surprised to see so many people providing their thoughts on this, that people are recognizing that they should protect themselves from
Yeah.
reinfection. Okay, so first quote, despite their sympathy, nobody I know besides my partner takes any precautions at all to protect my health or make it more likely I can attend events. Yeah. Nobody I know,
Yeah.
right? Like, can you imagine in your life that there's something that's so important to you as your health, and there's not a single person in the world besides one person that is committed to protecting your health?
Another one that we got was they make me feel uncomfortable for protecting myself,
Mm,
which I have no words for that. It's devastating. You're kind of just like left alone to fend for yourself, and it breaks my heart, honestly. It's really,
Yeah.
really tough.
Or another part of that is that you're invisible. So,
Mm-hmm.
I've been in situations where like I'm the only masker, me and my partner, and we're just kind of excluded because it's uncomfortable for people to look at us for some reason.
Yeah.
Another quote that stood out was that friends and family are supportive but unwilling to alter behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think
What does that
that
mean?
in that case, they're not supportive, right? When you're giving
Yeah.
lip service to something and you're saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you're struggling with your health," but then you aren't taking actions to be safe, not just feel safe, but be safe. We know every holiday season, people gather indoors and there's more likely to have illness, respiratory illness
Hmm.
spreads like crazy. So we aren't supportive if we're not doing something to try to mitigate that spread.
We have one final quote that we want to read at this point, which is, I have been forgotten by friends. I can't leave my home. I am extremely lucky, as I have parents who would do anything to keep me alive. But I watch them suffer during the holidays without support of their own. The amount of planning they must do to keep me from worsening or getting reinfected feels like a strategy game that isn't fun. I'm getting goosebumps. That is just,
Hmm. And it's not just the long haulers, it's our
yeah,
caregivers as well.
yeah,
So we're going to talk about how to navigate these social
yeah.
gatherings across different sort of dimensions. And the first
Hmm.
is communication.
Communication is such a key aspect of navigating social interactions as it can help bridge the gap between visible health and invisible illness.
Yeah, so we asked the community this question: what challenges do you face when explaining your symptoms to others? The number one problem at 88% is they don't understand the severity. Most people who haven't encountered a complex chronic illness can't understand the idea of never recovering. And I think this also relates a lot to number two, which is I struggle to explain my condition in a way that they understand. And that's at 62%. So we all have experienced the minimization, from doctors, from family members, and I think this really gets to the heart of that. It's also
Yeah.
really hard to explain a dynamic disability. So when maybe you're feeling good for a day or two and you look good and you're like, you have energy and you visit a friend and they're like, oh, you must be doing better. It's
Yeah.
hard to explain to them that actually, no, this is actually this is kind of rare. Or I had to do quite a bit to get here today. I had to
Yeah.
prepare quite a bit and sacrifice a lot to save my energy. And then there's a sort of a general ignorance around COVID that makes people think that long COVID is not as debilitating as it is. And so we hear a lot like, oh, I get tired too, I get fatigued too. But it's a different kind of fatigue. I've
Yeah.
read that the kind of fatigue that chronic illness sufferers experience is like being awake for 3 days straight and having to perform a task. And that's
Hmm.
that's much different than I'm tired at the end of the day because I worked.
Yeah. We hear these kinds of dismissive comments like, oh, I get tired a lot too, all the time. And that's either from friends and family who don't care or just don't want to care, don't want to know better. And communicating with these kinds of people can be really, really tough, which is why we have written a couple scripts for you to help you communicate with them in a way that doesn't drain as much energy as it would if you went in unprepared or without a script. So here's an example in form of a role play where I will pretend to be an uninformed friend and Jessie will react to me. Um, so Jessie, I'll be hosting a New Year's Eve party at my place this year. Do you want to come as well?
Since I have fatigue, I have very little energy and I'm often tired. That means that my energy levels get really low later in the day, and I won't feel well enough to join your party in the evening. And I'm also mostly house and bedbound. So, would you like to visit me in the new year instead?
I get tired a lot too. It can't really be that bad.
Well, the kind of fatigue I'm talking about is clinical. And unfortunately, it has significant adverse health effects. So I can't really push through without severe consequences. And it feels like I'm constantly jet lagged, and long nights of sleeps and naps do little to help. Simple activities consume much more energy for me than they do for a healthy person. So it actually is that bad. And I won't be able to attend, but I'd love to see you in the new year.
Yeah,
That was my very
probably.
gentle.
Very gentle, yeah. Yeah. We also hear a lot of unsolicited advice, which is why we have some scripts about that. Because sometimes it's hard to know what to say in response. So we've got some examples from very little confrontation to very confrontational, depending on how often this person has felt the need to tell you how to cure your incurable chronic illness.
Yeah, so there's something for everyone. So,
Yeah.
these scripts are in progress. You will find them on our website, which, oh,
Yeah.
spoiler alert,
We have a
we're developing,
website.
we're developing a website. So by the time that this episode is recorded, it may or may not be operational. But we will let you know on our Instagram. Oh, spoiler alert, we have an Instagram. So check us out on Instagram. What's our Instagram handle?
At COVID Longhaulers podcast.
So we'll share when our website is up, but hope, we're sick people, so we're doing this whenever we feel good. So
Yeah.
you can find more scripts on our website. We've written a couple different
Exactly.
ones to help communicate with your friends and family. We can also recommend sharing some of the scripts, like the one that explains your symptoms or boundaries, and then before the social event by printing them out or even sending the PDFs to your friends or family so that people know what to expect and you don't have to waste your energy educating them at a social function, if that's your jam.
Another key part of communication is like setting your boundaries. So learning to say no to certain obligations that don't align with your values or your health needs. And that can be very tough because, some people, a lot of us, want to avoid confrontation and don't want to like make people feel uncomfortable or be mad because we're not coming. What are your thoughts, Jessie, about like setting boundaries?
This is a tough one depending on your family dynamics, your chosen family or your bio family. So sometimes people honor our no's, as in NO, not our olfactory, our nose. And then sometimes hearing no can lead the listener to think it's up for negotiation. And I just want to say, no is a complete sentence. Say it with me.
No
No
is a
is a
complete
complete
sentence.
sentence. So, do you know which people in your life fall into which category? Sometimes these people engage in a discussion in order to try to change your mind rather than try to understand. And if someone is trying to wear you down, just remember this acronym, okay? It's JADE, JADE. You don't have to justify, argue, defend, or explain actions that are to protect your health and well being. And in fact, when you do that, when you try to justify, argue, defend, or explain, it sends a message that these things are up for negotiation and
Yeah.
discussion, and they really aren't.
It also gives them more space to attack you. So keeping it short can be helpful. Setting
Mhm.
boundaries is also incredibly difficult if you're a minor or just generally depend on a less cautious family and you can't really opt out. A lot of us are not minors,
Mhm.
but we live with family members who take care of us, who keep us alive on a daily basis. And the holidays are really, really tough if you're dealing with long COVID, and even harder if your family isn't on board with giving you the space you need and like offering for you to not participate or participate for only an hour or like move the bed to the living room so that you can be in the living room with everyone else but in bed, which my
Mhm.
family has done. But yeah, it's really really tough. So yeah, so if you've tried explaining why or why not you want to avoid certain gatherings and they still don't get it, you're not alone. If you can't change your family's plans, there are ways to make the season a little safer and more comfortable for you, and the next section will be all about helping you find ways to set boundaries even when it feels like those boundaries might not be completely up to you.
Yeah, so with self advocacy, I think the key here is speaking up with confidence. That can be really hard for a lot of us
Hmm.
because I don't know about you, but being ill and housebound and bedbound, I feel a little bit socially awkward at times talking to people about important topics because I don't know how they're going to react. So speaking up about your needs can feel intimidating, but you have
Yeah.
every right to ask for things that help you stay well. So, what are some ways to express yourself confidently and hopefully get your family on your side?
So the kind of most important thing is to keep it simple. So keep your explanation short and clear. As I mentioned earlier, the more you say, the more space you give people to attack you, or the more likely they're to find some kind of loophole or whatever. So keep it short and say something like, "This is important to me to be safe and to stay healthy, period." Don't explain why, don't explain how, just be like, "I need this and I'm doing it." Period. It's also very helpful to use I statements. So instead of generalizing, being like long haulers need this, just keep it focused on you. I need this. You need that.
Hmm.
So, for instance, you could say, I feel worried about getting sick, so I'd really like to keep my mask on. And that keeps it like focused on yourself because other long haulers might not mask as much because that's not a concern they have, but it's a concern you have, and you have every right to voice it and focus that on yourself.
Hmm.
And then finally, it's important to stay calm, even when your family is not. It can be really, really tough at first when your family doesn't understand. And it's really exhausting to repetitively have these kinds of conversations. But if you try to stay calm and patient, even if they push back, you will more likely be successful.
Yeah, I'm a big fan in these situations where if you have difficult family or friends or group, well, in that case, I'm like, why do you have difficult friends? But I understand that we are all wanting for more support in our
Yeah.
lives. But in that situation, I really like the term gray rocking.
Hmm.
So it's like look it up. It's a great way to kind of remove yourself from any drama and try not to be a target for drama,
Yeah.
and just not give people more than you need to communicate. Like you said, Emerson, just to not give them enough surface area to pick at your precautions. You're just there because you want to see family, you want to see friends. You're just communicating, hey, I need to keep my mask on. Do you want another piece of pie? Like it's easy, it's quick. You don't have to like engage.
Yeah.
So another dimension to navigating family gatherings is your preparedness in terms of your own energy management or meal preparation.
Hmm. Yeah, so pacing before and during the event and then also afterwards is really important. So in pacing, there's the four P's, and one of them is prioritizing, which means that you should prioritize what is the most meaningful for you and what you actually want to do. So decide what activity is worth the potential PEM crash, the potential flare, potential reinfection to you, and cut out everything else that isn't worth that risk to you. Like you prioritize what you want to do. And because of like limited energy, you have to understand you can't do everything the way you used to be able to, or your family might expect you to be able to. So you kind of have to also decide which activities, even if all of them would be worth the flare for you,
Hmm.
which ones are realistically going to happen due to your limited energy budget. And that's also that ties in with like understanding your energy budget and your signs that your body needs to rest and recuperate. So even if you're somewhere and it's going well and you're having fun and you're getting heart palpitations or feeling dizzy or out of breath, just giving yourself that time to rest and understand, okay, this is my body telling me I need to go and rest now. I need to go and do a body scan. I need to do some deep breathing, or I need to do the sensory. What is it called that you do, Jesse? I love that.
Oh, sensory integration break, where
Yeah, like
it's rest, but it's using your senses,
it's so
hacking your
fun.
senses. Yes.
So kind of like recognizing what your body is telling you and then, doing what is right for you.
Sometimes it can be pretty hard to recognize these early warning signs that we're overexerting ourselves and need to go and rest, especially when we're in the middle of a fun conversation and enjoying ourselves. It's easy to not really notice them or even just ignore them.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, we created this sheet that you can find on our website where you can make note of the symptoms you get when you're doing too much.
Yeah, and then that way you can take a break whenever you're feeling your symptoms and you can take it with you when you go somewhere and then you have a little reminder to pace yourself. You're good.
Another strategy I think that's really helpful, especially this relates to boundaries too, is time boxing your gatherings. So Emerson and I do this a lot actually with our preparation activities with each other. We'll say, okay, we're going to give ourselves 30 minutes and see how we feel. We'll set timers, like I'll set timers of my own to check in with myself if I'm at a social activity, like how am I feeling? Because I think sometimes it's easy to just power through because that's what we were
Hmm.
used to doing before. Or maybe you're just really having a great time and you don't want to stop, but like actually you kind of need to stop. Like you need to check in with yourself.
Yeah.
So make sure like when you do these time box gatherings, you have a plan for what am I going to do? Like, okay, I'm going to stay there for 1 hour. And at this time, I'm going to leave, and this is what I will say. Or I'm not going to leave. I'm going to take a rest up in a bedroom somewhere or something. I'm going to bring all my equipment that I need to support myself, like an eye mask or noise canceling headphones or something like that.
And then again, as I mentioned earlier, give yourself the time that you need to recover after a social event. Don't go hopping from one social event to the other unless you know that your body can handle it. Not all of us long haulers struggle with fatigue or PEM. A lot of us have very different symptoms to that, but just give yourself the time to recover. For some of it's a couple days, for some of us it's a week, for some of us it's just a couple hours, but just knowing your limits
Mhm.
and knowing how long you will likely need.
And with that, like spread your activities out if you can. So
Yes.
so you don't need to maybe do one weekend of seeing every single person, right? It's that way you can focus on recovering between your
Yeah.
activities.
Like that's a nice thing about it being a holiday season. It's not just one day, it's the whole season. I think it starts like on the 28th of November this year for like Thanksgiving, and it goes all the way to I think New Year's Eve. And I think in
Yeah.
Europe, even all the way to the 6th of January. That's like 1.5 months where you can meet up with people. You don't have to adhere to these strict things of like Christmas Day is on the 25th and you have to do this on the 25th. Like if you're not able to do that on the 25th, then do it, I don't know, on the 6th
Yeah.
of December. Do it on like do what works for you. If you want to have fun, if you want to do all these traditional things, but you're not able to on those days, then just move it forward, move it backwards, do Christmas in July. I don't
Get
know.
that calendar out, write it all out.
Exactly.
That's another thing that Emerson and I do with the podcast is writing it out and having backups. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'd really like to be able to complete this by then, but if I am not feeling well, it's likely that it'll get complete the week after or something. Give yourself that time in the planning. But also be prepared in terms of people. So be mindful of who is on the guest list so you can plan accordingly. So if there's a person that you want to see, but you know that they're going to drain you, I'm going to have a different time box for that person than I am
Hmm.
with others, right? So be honest about it and try not to fall into the hopium mindset of like, oh, well, it'll be fine. Everybody's happy because it's a Christmas or Hanukkah or solstice, whatever holiday that everyone's happy. It's actually a really stressful time. So just be mindful of our tendency to want to hope for the best and actually plan for the worst so that you're pleasantly surprised, is my
Yeah.
motto.
Yeah, absolutely. Another aspect of preparedness that does not belong to what we said before is just preparing a long COVID survival kit. And that can both be physical things that you need to take with you to survive the event. So that would be your medication, or for example, sunglasses, earplugs, noise canceling headphones, water, electrolytes, like anything that you need to be able to participate for longer or to avoid a flare or PEM afterwards. But also just like preparing the people you're going with. So, for example, telling your caregiver or the person who is joining you to this event and be like, I will have to leave after 2 hours, even if I look fine and I'm having fun. I have to leave after 2 hours because that is my limit for social activities. So, yeah, that is really, really important. And we have scripts on that on our website. So, we have scripts for both you to communicate with your caregiver beforehand. So, tell your caregiver before, I have to leave after 2 hours. I use mobility aids, whatever. And then we also have scripts for your caregiver to communicate with others instead of you so that your caregiver can communicate to the hosts or the people who are going to be coming over that you will be using mobility aids, that you need these kinds of accommodation, whatever. And that this burden is taken off of you and moved on to someone else who actually has the energy and mental capacity to deal with it in case the people who are visiting or who are hosting have a negative reaction to that.
Definitely. One of the comments that stands out too about this from our survey is someone had said, I will be leaving the event earlier and will be wearing earplugs and sunglasses to avoid sensory overload. I might
Hmm.
take some CBD to help me relax so that I don't lash out at my family members. So, do what you got
Yeah.
to do, right?
Yeah.
Also, if you prepare your own food, consider batch cooking weeks in
Hmm.
advance. Use that freezer if you have one. So, I think another like fun part of this is like inviting a COVID cautious friend over, like someone that's, going to protect your health. turn on some music and get going. Maybe you are making cookies together in
Yeah.
addition to making whatever your very limited diet is or something, right?
Yeah.
Like make it a holiday sort of theme, make it fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is also a really great opportunity to maybe spend time with a friend that you might not see otherwise, because we have all these chores and tasks that we need to complete, but our energy is often so limited. So by
Hmm.
combining something fun like socializing, which you actually want to do, with a dreaded chore, you can make the chore more enjoyable, and you'll get the chance to spend time with a friend that you might not have been able to see otherwise, especially if your energy is depleted after completing these tasks.
Another part of the preparedness that folks have talked about from the survey is, limiting activities, which we've talked
Hmm.
about, having boundaries, resting. You hear it so many times because it's so important, and we need so
Yeah.
much practice doing it.
A third dimension to navigating safe gatherings is the importance of COVID safety. Since COVID reinfection is such a significant concern for long haulers, we wanted to discuss the latest science on protecting yourself, along with some strategies on how to do that.
Yeah, so this is a fun part for me. I
You
get
know
really
all about it.
nerdy. I get so nerdy about it because knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to protect yourself from something, the more you know about it, the safer you're going to be. So risk calculation. Okay, this is important. Feeling safe while taking no precautions to minimize risk is akin to wishful or magical thinking. It's important to remember that risk can be measured. It's not a feeling. So when people say, "Oh, I felt fine doing that," or "I felt like it was safe," this is an objective thing that we can measure. So your feelings don't matter. Were you safe objectively? Like, did you take the risk mitigation steps to be safe? Risk of reinfection can be measured the way that we measure other risks, such as how often we apply sunscreen, or driving a car with advanced safety features, or wearing
Hmm.
a seatbelt when we're riding in a car, or how we inspect our public infrastructure like bridges and transport, stuff like that. We have ways of gauging the safety of things, right? It's important to remember this, as you may feel pressure to drop your precautions for the sake of, quote, feeling normal to make others more comfortable. But the most important thing we can do is take care of our own health the best we can.
Yeah,
So just remember,
absolutely.
just because someone says they feel safe, they feel like they're not going to get COVID, or they don't feel like they're sick, or they don't feel like they have symptoms, or they don't feel whatever, right? It doesn't matter how people feel. It's something that can be measured.
Hmm.
So another great quote from the survey was, do what makes you comfortable and don't let people talk you into going places you don't want to go. You are the person who will have to deal with reinfection, not them. Nurture the friendships and the relationships that are understanding and supportive, and let go of the ones that aren't.
Amen to that. Also, food is such a big part of the holidays, and it is often used as an excuse not to mask. Wearing a mask or a respirator is known to be the best way to protect yourself from infection, but also protecting others in case you have some kind of virus or illness that you do not know about. So, if you are masking, consider avoiding attending the dinner. So, for example, take a doggy bag with you and then leave when it's dinner time, or, maybe plan a different family gathering that isn't centered around a big meal. So, I don't know, meet up in the afternoon and spend some time outside, some kind of alternative activity. Or you can also, if it is a dinner party that you can't avoid or change, you could, for example, use dinner time as a chance to like go into a quiet room, have some dinner alone and rest and recuperate. And that would give you the chance to like gather some new energy so you can stay
Mhm.
longer, and also, of course, protect you from the risk of reinfection that you would have if you took off your mask to sit in a living room with a bunch of people who are all
Mhm.
not masking and possibly not following COVID precautions either. So another challenge that long haulers face is a lack of guidance from authoritative entities on how to best protect ourselves. What is a good resource that we can follow to protect ourselves and that we can use to inform others who do not know how to protect themselves?
Oh, yeah, this is such a tough one because things change, governments change. We just had
Yeah.
an election in the US. There still is content on the CDC website about protecting yourself. So I am going to reference that, but eventually it might disappear. And so we'll add links in our show notes or something to the archived version. But before we talk about the CDC stuff, one of the best resources for COVID safety in person gatherings is this thing called the Safer Gatherings Toolkit, from the People's CDC. The People's CDC is a group of like a lot of scientists and sort of activists trying to make sure that we have the best information to protect ourselves and others. So in this Safer Gatherings Toolkit, it's a PowerPoint presentation you can read, but we'll summarize it here a bit. For number one, high quality respirators should be fit tested, not a surgical mask. A surgical mask does not protect you from breathing in aerosols. If you are ill and you wear a
Yeah.
surgical mask, it will only keep the droplets in. They're made for health professionals, you know, to not get blood or other fluids in or out, right? So, but we know, and World Health Organization, our CDC, all the scientists know this is an aerosol virus. This is an airborne virus. So, high quality respirators, that means a KN95, FFP2, FFP1, N95, high quality respirators should be fit tested. So, the US government CDC, it shares recommendations on masking in their infection control recommendations, which we'll add to the show notes. The US government CDC also shares on their website that masking can help reduce respiratory virus spread. Specifically,
Who
they
knew?
explain to use the highest quality mask available and do what we call a poor man's fit test. All right, are you ready? So, when you're wearing the mask, the gaps around your mask, they can let air leak in and out. So check for gaps by cupping your hands around the outside edges of the mask. And if the
Hmm.
mask has a good fit, you'll feel warm air come through the front of the mask, and you may be able to see the mask material move in and out with each breath. Okay.
Yeah.
If you feel breath or air coming out where your hands are, you have a leak, right? You want a good fit test. That means for people that shave or have facial hair, they want to get a close shave to get that good fit. You don't want to have a long beard like Santa.
His, his mask would not have a good fit.
Not at all. And all of these prevention strategies described in this guidance can be really helpful to reduce the risk. They're especially helpful when, according to the CDC, respiratory viruses are causing a lot of illness in your community. So yes, that check mark. That's what happens during the holidays. You or people around you were recently exposed to a respiratory virus, are sick or are recovering. Check. A lot of people are sick, and I mean, you can just walk into any store and hear people just hacking up. It's
The larger the
concerning.
group, the more likely it is that someone
Yeah.
is or had some kind of condition recently. Yeah.
Right. Well, the last thing they said is you or the people around you have risk factors for severe illness. Risk factors. So, what are the risk factors?
These risk factors are older or elderly adults, young children, people with weakened immune systems, people
Check.
with disabilities,
Check.
us, and pregnant people. Now, if you're looking to go to a family gathering, you're very likely to have your grandparents there, maybe some younger children there, maybe someone is pregnant. You'll be there, so there's going to be someone there with a disability. And since it is suspected that long COVID can also, cause some immune deficiency stuff, whatever, fit into two categories at once. So yeah,
Check
taking
marks.
precautions.
Checkmate.
So the CDC is telling us all to take precautions.
Just very quietly, they're saying this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so then the World Health Organization talks about avoiding reinfection. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read this quote. It is known that the chance of developing long COVID increases the more times a person gets reinfected by SARS-CoV-2, COVID, and that reinfection can worsen symptoms for people already living with long COVID. This is from Dr. Catherine Smallwood, who's the Senior Emergency Officer and COVID-19 Program Lead at WHO Europe. Explains that COVID-19 is here to stay, and we need to ensure that people continue to protect themselves the best they can. And the best way to avoid long COVID is to not get infected or reinfected in the first place. So, how do you not get infected? Take your precautions.
Exactly.
um, and this is where we're going to get a little bit more in the weeds here because this is really important, you guys. All right, ready? So, another recommendation from the Safer Gatherings Toolkit is to move activities outside, weather permitting. So, maybe you're in the global south and it's warm, or maybe it's really warm up here in the north, unseasonably warm. Research shows that the odds of indoor transmission was 18.7 times higher than outdoor. So, an example of this is maybe we take a hike together instead of hang out all together. Like I can hike on my good days. So I love taking hikes with people to talk to them, to get to know them. Or maybe you're outside with a campfire or something, and that's a little bit easier.
One common fallacy we see in navigating COVID safety is when someone says, I'm not sick, I'm not experiencing any symptoms, so you don't need to take any precautions. What does the research say about that?
Yeah, so this is also really, really important and really controversial. I mean, it's very well supported in the research. It's just that it's uncomfortable for people. The research suggests that as much as 50% of COVID transmission is from asymptomatic infection, meaning that people who are not visibly ill are spreading this virus. And rapid tests have a high false negative rate, especially with asymptomatic cases. So this is really hard for people that they want to test, they want to be safe, they use the rapid test, it comes up negative, even though they could be positive.
Hmm.
The PCR tests, which are the molecular tests that more sensitive tests that a lot of times are available at doctors' offices, they're more accurate, but they are very much more expensive. Like I think the last time I looked, the Lucira test I think was $40 for one test.
And some, like in so many places, PCR tests aren't like available anymore. They aren't offered. Aren't sold anywhere. So you
Yeah,
kind of have to
this is
trust
a
trust the
travesty
bad test.
that will say COVID is here to stay, and then we do nothing to try to protect ourselves from
Yeah.
this virus that is here to stay, that is not safe for people to get. So if you have a rapid test and that's your only option, test the day before the event and the day of. And if you have
Yep.
a PCR test, test the day of. And along with asymptomatic transmission, meaning I don't have symptoms, but I'm getting others sick, the pre-symptomatic transmission accounts for about a third of COVID transmission. So that means that means
That
people
is
haven't
so
gotten.
much.
I know it's so scary because it's like, okay, this person isn't sick yet. They don't know it, and they're not going to test because they're not feeling sick. So
Yep.
one way that we try to combat this is, and this is hard during the holiday season, but if you have people in your life that are open to these things, which I sincerely hope you do, is, let people know like, hey, if you want us all to have a safe gathering and no illness, consider wearing a mask for a week before the gathering. Consider not sharing unfiltered indoor air. And that number, the week, is kind of fuzzy. It kind of depends
Yeah.
on the variant. Some variants, it seems like it's 14 days. Some people it's
Yeah.
14 days. Some people it's 3 days before they show symptoms. So that's controversial. I'm going to leave that up to y'all.
Yeah, with my last infection, I had an incubation period of pretty much 14 days on the dot. So one
Wow.
week of, yeah, so one week of masking when outside would not have been enough to protect anyone at a social gathering. But you
Mm.
can decide for yourself. Different sources recommend different lengths. Some recommend 5 days, others say a week, and others say 2 weeks. But this is definitely an option if you can get your friends or family to wear a mask or respirator for a while before seeing you, which is probably the bigger challenge, let's be honest.
Yeah, one way that I've seen some people do this is just reiterating that they don't want to be sick during the holidays. And, wouldn't
Yeah.
it be great if we all just kind of masked before the holidays so that we could enjoy
Yeah.
it? So
Um,
to summarize this section, just because you are not feeling symptoms does not mean you're not spreading COVID.
yeah.
Just because you tested negative on a rapid test does not mean you are not spreading COVID. In
Yeah.
fact, there's a very good chance that you are if you're not
Yeah.
taking any precautions.
So besides a well-fitted respirator, are there any other pieces of equipment that can help to reduce the spread of illness?
Yes, so get those HEPA air filters out, put those in every room. But this is not a replacement for masking.
Hmm.
There's also something called a Corsi Rosenthal box, a CR box. We'll add it to the show notes. You can Google it, but you can make your own air filters.
That's
Um,
so cool.
sorry, air purifiers. You can make your own. And there's some really cool models out there if you're handy. There's also something called a CO2 monitor. So a CO2 monitor can help you understand how much ventilation is in a space. So a poorly ventilated space will have a lot of expelled air, meaning it came from my lungs, right? I breathed out CO2. That means I breathed out germs and other stuff, right? So we know that CO2 makes viruses stay in the air longer. So it's a really good, helpful metric for, another layer of protection. So a CO2 monitor can help us understand how ventilated a space is, and we want to aim for like something like 400 to 800 parts per million. Once you get over that, the infection risk increases quite a bit because you're breathing in someone's expelled air. But also, there's a lot of data on this about brain fog and cognitive ability
Hmm.
that for me, if I'm in a space where their CO2 is over 1,000, I get so dumb. I
Yeah.
I can't function. I don't know what it is. I mean, I have theories, but that might be the case for you too if you feel like there's some environments where you are having really, really bad brain fog versus others. Is a CO2 monitor might help you figure that out. And then last,
Yeah.
another piece of equipment that can help you enjoy things in a mask is a sip valve. It's a little valve that you add to your mask, your FFP2, N95, KN95, whatever. I'm just going to list all the masks. It's a little thing that you insert into your mask, and you can put a straw through it, and it's
That is so
uh
cool.
yeah, so you can like go if you want to have a drinks with someone, or if you want to sip water because you have to drink your electrolytes. This is a great option.
Yeah, that's absolutely. You can still enjoy a cocktail or a mocktail or some wine or mulled
Mm-hmm.
wine or all that yummy
Mm-hmm.
stuff that most of us can't have
Yeah.
because we can't consume alcohol, but whatever. Wow, we just discussed a whole load of ways that you can protect yourselves from COVID. And we asked the participants in our survey what precautions they will take to ensure their safety at events. So let's like take a quick dive and look into what they will be doing. So most people will be limiting the time they spend at a gathering, and this is likely a good strategy to avoid PEM or a flare, but not necessarily for avoiding reinfection, as that can happen really quickly within a couple of minutes of breathing shared indoor air, especially if the CO2 parts per million are very high, as we just learned.
Yes, exactly.
Um, and sadly, only 25% of long haulers will ask for tests before meetings, perhaps because of the earlier noted attitude about testing, quote, begrudgingly. And some alluded to not trusting that their family would actually test if asked or wouldn't do the test properly. Someone else mentioned how hard it is to get testing equipment, even if they could get people to test. So we have a quote that says, I can't ask folks to test as we no longer have access to testing equipment in my area. Plus, people are pretty anal about it, so I just stopped asking. And that is a
Ah,
big issue. If you can't access the things you would need to be safe, then you can't ask people to test in the first place. So you can't like,
yeah. And then
yeah,
you do ask them and they just kind of roll their eyes and it's like, we still have this virus anyway. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so 53% said that they will wear a respirator, which is a decent way of protecting yourself.
Yeah, so there's other more controversial methods that people use to protect themselves.
Hmm.
And I say it's controversial because the evidence hasn't really demonstrated for or against. So there's what we call anecdotal evidence, if you're not familiar with that, where it's just like a person, like people say, hey, this works for me, but we don't have studies. So nose sprays. Nose sprays like Covixel or Xlear, Xlear, from I get that on Amazon. Those are nose sprays that people might use to help either rinse the nasal passages or block the virus from being able to access the receptors in your nasal passages. So that's an option if you need an extra layer of protection. There's also the mouthwash option, which is they say CPC mouthwash. The I don't remember what CPC stands for, but it's a chemical. So if you find mouthwash with CPC in it, it's good. But I've also read a compelling study that salt water can help too. I think the big thing is that you're rinsing and you're cleaning. So a neti
Yeah.
pot, some people will use a neti pot to like clean out their nasal passages because that's where the virus takes hold. It's really from breathing in through your nose or breathing in
Your
through your
mouth.
mouth. And that's where the ACE receptors are that COVID latches on to. You can find some resources and information on the efficacy of different kinds of nasal sprays and CPC mouthwash in our show notes.
We also asked the participants in our survey, do you feel that you can adequately protect yourself from infection during the holiday season? Why or why not? And most people said no. There is a conflict between protecting oneself by declining family meetups and causing distress in families. It's just a hard choice for long haulers who are already isolated and having to decide whether they will continue to isolate themselves or take the risk and go and join a social gathering. And as mentioned before, there's a lack of trust that family, friends, and partners will test, mask, or even stay home when they are sick. And there are two responses that we would like to share with all of you. The first quote is, Yes and no. I am housebound, so I don't put myself into any direct threat. It's more my family members attending things that are a danger to me, and I can't control their behavior. However, I ask them to mask during surges, and I social distance or isolate from them when they've been at busy events.
Yeah, another quote someone said was, "Every time I've gotten reinfected was when I let my guard down and I showed up to an important gathering. Every time someone showed up sick and I got COVID, I can't trust anyone, even family."
It's just so upsetting. It's
Yeah, and
infuriating.
it's so easy to think that won't happen to me, that can't happen to me, but I
Yeah,
can say over the last several years of observing this and experiencing it in my own life, this is happening all the time. So please
yeah,
protect yourself. Don't just
yeah,
trust that people have your best interests at heart because it's either that they are ignorant or that they are careless. And neither of those are good options for you.
yeah, absolutely.
So if it's really difficult for you to attend your family or friend gathering because of these issues we've talked about, one option could be doing some alternative celebrations, maybe not celebrating with the big gatherings, maybe doing smaller gatherings. Create new traditions, modify your activities to suit your physical and emotional capacity.
Yeah, so many of our responders in the holiday survey found satisfaction in smaller, quieter gatherings with people that understand their limitations. And one of the quotes that we got was bonfires with friends who are willing to accommodate, do outdoor events. Christmas lights outside if I'm feeling well enough to walk around.
Love
Which is
that. We
just
have,
really nice. You're outside with people breathing in
yeah.
fresh, clean air. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
lovely.
Another quote another person said was, "My chosen family will sometimes rent a cabin and we'll pod up together for a week. Many of us can work remotely and the rest will take holiday. We also have learned special takeout offerings local to each of us to bring and send home with others, and it has similar feelings to having the traditional leftovers for days at home." And I love that. That's just
That
such
is
a
so cool.
warm, just like accommodating people, just
Yeah,
sweet, kind, and then trying to replicate parts of the holiday that you care about. That's lovely.
yeah, I agree.
Another quote that I really feel like I relate a lot to is focusing more on my household, doing fewer
Mm-hmm.
things, but with more thought and care. And which one of us isn't totally stressed normally during the holidays, right?
Yeah,
We get frazzled by all this pressure to like shop and attend things and whatever. But when you slow down and simplify and you realize what really matters, it can make a really big impact on your mental health and your enjoyment of the holiday. Are you doing any alternative celebrations for the holidays, Emerson?
oof. Well, so the big celebrations with the extended family will be the same as always, zero accommodations and no COVID precautions, except for what I will be telling my parents and my sister to do. I will be wearing a respirator the entire time, and I will leave earlier, latest around dinner, as I can't eat with my mask on, and I couldn't eat the same meal as the others anyway, so I will be leaving earlier. But those celebrations with the extended family will be pretty stressful. Um, but in recent years, it has become a tradition, even before I had long COVID, for my mom, my dad, my sister, and I to celebrate Christmas together on the 23rd, which is not really a Christmas holiday where I live. It's usually rather low key, and we eat dinner together and we watch Christmas movies. And it's usually my favorite day of the holiday season. And as I jokingly mentioned earlier, we have a bed in the living room, which we moved there when I got sick 1.5 years ago. So even if I'm too tired to sit at the living room table with my family, I can participate in the conversation from my bed, and I'm not entirely excluded. And
Mm.
I don't really get to do that in other social gatherings when we're the guests in other places because
Mhm.
I can't expect everyone to have a bed in their living room. Um, yeah, but on the 23rd, I'll get to chill with my family in the nicest way possible. So the only real alternative celebration will be the holiday meetup with the Discord server, and I'm already really looking forward to that one. It's just so nice to talk to all of you fellow long haulers who just understand the situation I'm in with zero judgment, no
Mhm.
unsolicited advice. They're like, oh, but Emerson, have you tried to align your chakra to heal your long COVID? Or whatever nonsense people like to spout these days. And it's always just so nice to like socialize from bed without having to go through all the stress of getting ready to leave the house, that I can just participate from my happy, safe
Mhm.
place. What about you, Jesse? What are your plans for Christmas?
We're still considering what we're doing, but considering before and after Christmas visits. with
Hmm.
family to avoid the stimulation the day of, extra people, extra dogs, extra everything. So
Yeah,
celebrating on an off day instead of the day of with a smaller group. So that's what we're thinking of.
that sounds lovely. I always think about how during lockdown, virtual gatherings were so normal. I remember with my extended family on the 24th or 25th, we all got together in a Zoom call and we like had our wine glasses and champagne and we were like, "Oh yeah, happy Christmas" and all that. And it was completely normal, like no questions asked. And it always upsets me that nowadays it's just expected just because the government says we can that everything has to go back to the way it was before the pandemic, of everything has to be in person and in closed rooms and 1,000 people in a tiny space. Why was it acceptable and okay then and no questions asked? And now when COVID is still around and people are still being harmed by it, right? People are still developing long COVID, being infected, dying from it. Why is it impossible for us to go back to that?
Yeah, I feel that so strongly. And I think that in some ways we were able to connect deeper with people because
Yeah,
of the emphasis on meeting people where they are. It's really hard now to see we've forgotten so much of what we learned in those early years of the pandemic. So
yeah,
many good things we got from it. I know that it wasn't good for everyone not to see people, right? We know that. We
yeah.
recognize that. We're not saying that we all need to go back into our basements. Right, and
Yeah.
you think about these holiday times that are so important to people's relationships, their gathering, their traditions. I don't think the tradition should be more important than the relationships.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about today is how can we have these relationships still and be safe? And
Hmm.
we want the people in our lives to recognize, hey, it's going to be a little bit different because the world is different. But here's some ways that we can all still have a great relationship and
Yeah.
have these traditions. Maybe the traditions change, but that's okay. So include
Yeah.
us, help us feel like we matter to you.
So all of this brings us to our next major topic, which is mental health and coping mechanisms. And in the survey, we asked the question, how has long COVID affected your emotional well-being during the holidays? The survey results were very striking, with 83% of long haulers reporting feeling more emotionally isolated during the holidays, and 67% report feeling depressed or sad. There's also a large concern over precautions and getting infected, and a kind of guilt that we are letting down our family members. For us long haulers, there are three major overarching concerns that affect our mental health: protecting ourselves from reinfection and pacing managing our symptoms so that we don't end up in bed for weeks afterwards, and also pressure from friends and family to participate in a way that is not healthy for us and act like we actually aren't sick. There's also this massive feeling of FOMO, so fear of missing out, that is very strong during the holidays. So we may let our guard down for the sake of our mental health. So participate in a social gathering to have fun, which can, in the short term, be beneficial for our mental health. But it is important to remember that even though you may feel this kind of pressure to participate and drop your precautions, in the sake of feeling normal or making other people feel more comfortable around you, the most important thing we can do is to take care of our own health the best way we can. So even though a social gathering may be very fun, without the right kind of precautions and pacing and preparations, is it worth the massive flare or the risk of reinfection that might follow after this event?
Hmm. Yeah, protecting our energy can also feel like we're playing defense around the holidays.
Yeah.
So like I get these feelings of obligation. We all want to congregate. There's stress and there's pressure to have gifts and
Hmm.
goodies prepared. But again, the most important thing that we can
Yeah.
do is to take care of our own health. There was a really great quote in the survey. Someone said, I remind myself of my partner, my child, and my pets, and how they need me to stay as healthy as I can because they love me.
Yeah.
So when you're like making these calculations in your brain of like, oh, maybe the risk is low or, I don't have to be as careful or something, I think it's helpful to really look at the big picture. Like,
Hmm.
can can your family, your immediate, your partner, if you have kids, if you have pets, yourself, what like can you deal with the fallout of that? And if you can't, which most of us can't, right? Make different choices up front. So don't fall into momentum and old habits. Make preparations.
Yeah. We mentioned this earlier in the preparation section, that planning ahead can be a big help to reduce fatigue, um, and also a great way to react to each situation as it arises. So if you utilize your toolkit and your strategies well, there's a good probability that you will enjoy the holidays and the days after the holidays as well. So you can have fun at a social gathering,
Mhm.
which will be beneficial for your mental health, but you can also take care of yourself in a way that you will feel good after the gathering as well, and you won't have a massive
Yeah.
crash, which will make you depressed and sad.
So you're not just surviving, you're thriving.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, Another like way to plan ahead in this regard with your mental health is think about, what I said before about the boundaries issue, and maybe you have some difficult people that you have to see. What is your exit strategy if you need a break or are
Hmm.
overwhelmed? If you're traveling, is there a quiet place that you can rest? If not, is there somewhere nearby you can take a break or a friend who can be on standby to drive you home? Because families can be really stressful around the holidays and emotions and expectations run high. People don't always bring their best selves. So,
Yeah.
especially around this time, we just went through a really stressful election. There's a lot of turmoil in the United States, at least, between family
In Europe
members and,
too.
and such. Yeah. Yeah. So, people might not be bringing their best selves. So it's really important to have those boundaries. Set those boundaries where needed to protect your peace. And you're not obligated to pretend to be normal to make someone else comfortable.
Agreed. And once you have a plan, you can consider sharing it with other long hauler friends who can give you feedback and potentially also be your accountability buddy. So, for example, I could send Jessie my plan for the holidays, and then Jessie can tell me, Emerson, that is complete bullshit. You need to take more breaks. You cannot go to a social gathering for 5 hours. I will call you after the half-hour mark to check in if you're doing okay. And if you're not doing
Mhm.
okay, I will be making sure you go home immediately.
I will
Um,
fly to Switzerland and
Please
pick
do.
you up myself.
Exactly.
Uh, it sounds
Yeah.
lovely to spend Christmas in Europe. Anyway, uh, so another aspect of the mental health um, dimension here is, what are your emergency SOS tools for if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, dealing with isolation and grief because maybe you're alone
Mhm.
and you decided to stay home, or maybe you have this like anniversary like feeling that people have where like you've been maybe ill for long enough that a year has gone by and you remember what it was like
Yeah.
when it first happened. So what strategies do you use for that, Emerson?
So I'm a big fan of our Discord server. I joined it last Christmas because I just got so overwhelmed with my life and everything that was going on. And I think having a social community, being that a long COVID group or a support group or just your friends, chosen family, but someone you can reach out to, that is really important. That I do before, during, and after events. I
Mhm.
often like to vent when my family says something really stupid. Um, but also, if I'm somewhere and I want to make sure that I'm doing okay physically and also mentally, I like to do things like meditation, body scans. I will take my low energy hobby, which is knitting, with me everywhere. It's a great way to um, distract myself from any kind of spiraling or any kind of like negative thoughts or feelings that I'm experiencing. And it's also a really nice distraction from people. A lot of people like to like focus on you and your chronic illness as if that's your entire being. But if you whip out a knitting project, you can talk to them
Mhm.
about it, right? It's something
Yeah,
interesting that you can discuss. You can show them the kind of stitches you're doing. So
I
that's
love
something
that.
that I like to do. It's a great way to deter people from talking about me to something that is me
Yeah,
adjacent. Um, but
finding
yeah,
something in
also
common that you can
exactly,
talk
yeah.
about. Yeah.
And then I think since I have her now, my Teddy, my baby, well, not baby, I didn't birth her, but my dog Teddy, who I adopted in June, she is the absolute love of my life. We spend all day cuddling together, and she's a great
Mhm.
excuse to leave early because we can't take her everywhere. So it's like, oh, I have to go home to take care of Teddy, even though she
Mhm.
can stay at home really well. But no one has to know that.
Oh, but we're
Um,
we're announcing it on this podcast.
oops. But yeah, and also she's just like great to like have and cuddle and distract yourself.
Mhm.
Pets are just so good for mental well-being. So
Amen.
Teddy is my coping mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so important for us to take care of our mental health and handle our mental anguish and to kind of find joy in the holiday season, regardless of all the stress that we've been going through.
Yeah, so this
What
is where
are,
we get to talk about some positive stuff.
yeah, so what are some good ways to find joy and happiness and everything through all the limitations and all the negative things that we've discussed so far in this podcast?
Well, survey says, I think I'm a big fan of movies. I listen
Yeah.
to a lot of music as a sensory sort of calming thing, crafting and knitting and stuff. That's all stuff that I think is
Hmm.
kind of always around. But what does our survey say?
Our survey says that virtual get-togethers are very important. I loved our Halloween get-together party. That was amazing.
Yeah.
But also things like FaceTime and voice messages with friends, um, food, and just cozy time with friends, decorating, listening to movies. Our survey also said pets, so I'm right on track with my teddy. Um,
Hmm.
um, yeah.
Yeah. And connection for most of us, it's really important. We've had to adjust how we connect with others and who those others are. So you're not alone in how you're feeling right now. If you feel like there's no one in your life that can understand you, find other chronically ill people who get it because
Yeah.
this is chronically ill people are the best people. Like we have so much empathy for one another and um support because there's nothing else we can really offer, right? We're all very
Hmm.
sick. But what we can
Yeah.
offer is I hear you, I see you, you're not alone.
Exactly. Yeah. Besides everything that we've spoken about so far, which were mostly our experiences and survey responses, I also want to go into a little dive about acceptance and commitment therapy, also called ACT. And ACT is a form of psychotherapy that helps people accept difficult emotions and thoughts rather than fighting or avoiding them. So it focuses on living
Hmm.
in line with our personal values by developing psychological flexibility. This therapy can be very helpful for chronically ill and disabled people. And there are quite a few steps on how to like reach this kind of acceptance and commitment. But we want to like focus on three really helpful ones that can maybe help you manage your negative feelings around the holiday season. The first one would be accepting difficult emotions and physical limitations. The holiday season might amplify feelings of sadness, frustration, or isolation. These are feelings that we feel all year long, right? But during the holiday season, when everyone is like talking about their big plans, go to the Christmas market, or these big family gatherings are happening and people are talking about it, it amplifies those feelings. You're more aware of your isolation, of your loneliness, of your physical limitations, of your fatigue. And ACT encourages acceptance of these emotions rather than trying to avoid them or control them or even bottle them up until it bursts. And
Hmm.
this helps reduce the struggle against things that cannot be changed, like our physical limitations or unpredictable symptoms. So instead of focusing on eliminating discomfort, acceptance and commitment therapy promotes creating a space for these feelings without judgment.
I love that. Like it reminds me a lot of pain management. Like I've had to do a lot of pain management for chronic pain, and a big
Yeah.
part of it is kind of leaning into the pain, right? You're
Hmm.
not fighting against it. You are leaning into it, for lack of a better word. Um,
Yeah.
so I see one example here of this acceptance of difficult emotions and physical limitations is instead of fighting the fatigue that comes from holiday activities, you can acknowledge it as part of your experience and make mindful decisions about how to spend your energy. So for me,
Exactly.
that's integrating a lot of cozy or hygge, Hygge, that term for like I think it's Danish, right? Where it's
Hmm.
like you are focusing on sort of the coziness of the time of year, the textures, your comfy socks, your electric
Yes.
blankets, your tea or your hot cocoa, that sort of thing. So integrating your fatigue into your holiday in a way that like, okay, I'm going to do this, but then I'm going to go and have some quiet time for myself and I'm going to take care of myself like I would a wee little baby.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
And
number
then,
two,
yeah. So the second step is cognitive diffusion to unhook our negative thoughts. So the holiday
mm,
season might also bring up unhelpful thoughts such as, I am a burden, or I can't participate the way I used to. And in acceptance and commitment therapy, cognitive diffusion teaches us how to unhook from these thoughts, recognizing them as just thoughts and not facts. So
hmm.
you are, in fact, not a burden. Don't have to feel guilty for having these physical limitations. So, by distancing yourself from the narrative your mind is creating, you can reduce the impact that these thoughts have on your mood and on your behavior.
Yeah, I love the term unhooking because I get
Yeah,
hooked, man. It just
yeah, it's like so hard not to like fall into that spiral and
yeah.
actually believe that you're a bad person for being disabled. Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of believing I should do more, or I
Hmm.
should be more, you can say like, I notice I'm having the thought that I should do more. And then creating space between you and that thought. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a thought. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It's just a
Yeah.
passing thought, a passing feeling. We can let it go.
I don't know if this actually belongs to act, but something that I like to do and I feel like I should be doing more is like remind myself of all the things that I am doing. So like even if they're tiny things, like I brushed my teeth
Mhm.
this morning, I cleaned my glasses, I got out of bed, I put on a pair of socks.
Yeah.
I cuddled my dog. And these are like minuscule things, but they're so big to us when our life is so tiny and kind of like confined to
Yeah.
our house or our apartment or like our home. Um, and then I like to remember why I can't do more, right? Like I can't leave the house because then I will get sick and all of these things. And like that's why what I am doing is enough and it's good. I do that
Yeah.
in occupational therapy. I don't know if it's ACT, but you know, it's helpful
Yeah.
for me. So maybe
Oh,
it'll be
that's
helpful for
good
you.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in a third step, which is the last step we'll be talking about in this episode, but we'll be posting more about it on social media and possibly our website, so you can read up more there. So the third step is mindfulness to stay present. So acceptance and commitment therapy emphasizes mindfulness or being present in the moment without judgment. Mindfulness helps us stay grounded in the here and now rather than getting caught up in worries about the future. So, for example, will I have enough energy for the family gathering? Or ruminating in the past, for example, I used to be able to do so much more.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
focusing on the present allows you to fully engage in moments that matter, even if they are small or fleeting. So, like I said, cuddling your dog or knitting a pair of socks, putting on
Hmm.
your hand knit socks, right? These are small moments, but
Yeah.
these are beautiful moments if you make them be beautiful moments.
Small joyful moments make up a happy
Hmm.
life. When we can recognize good things and mindfully enjoy these quiet moments, these tiny, cozy things, it can go a long way
Yeah,
to help our mental health, help us keep us from spiraling, help us recognize the good that is still in our lives.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, in terms of support groups, you should find some chronically ill
Yeah.
folks. And Emerson mentioned the Discord server and how helpful it is. If you feel like you might benefit from some extra support this season, you can, check out our show notes for a link to the Discord server. Um, but we also have a list of other great, helpful online communities and support groups. And most
Yeah.
people in the survey named online communities as a great coping skill during this difficult time. So this is something that a lot of us
Resonate
experience.
with. Yeah. Whilst compiling the list, we mostly listened to what the people were saying in the survey, as well as some naming some other servers and communities that we knew about.
So here we are at the last section of this episode, and we are going to
Yes.
talk, we're going to wrap this up with talking to the people around long haulers. How can we be good allies to our loved ones dealing with long COVID or really any chronic illness? Our survey asked the question, how can friends and family be more supportive of your long COVID experience during the holidays? And we have some quotes to share with you because these are just too good for us to summarize. Before we get into the quotes, the overall themes are, testing and masking go a long way to make long haulers safe. Stop pretending that everything is normal and educate yourself on COVID and long COVID. Accept our agency to choose not to attend. Plan inclusive events So smaller gatherings instead of huge hours long ones where we can attend or outdoor gatherings, et cetera, et cetera. And then please stop with the unsolicited advice and dismissiveness. Like you wouldn't imagine saying some of these things to someone who was in chemo or some other very obvious disabilities.
Yeah.
So don't do it here.
Yeah, so we have a quote that is really, really good and really long, so I hope I won't mess it up. And it says, be proactive, offer to test before an event, offer to mask in indoor spaces for a week leading up to the event. Be understanding. Don't make me feel bad if I can't show up. Don't act like it's a big deal if I have to lay down during a gathering. Listen and internalize. When you ask me about my health and I spend the little time and energy I have to explain my condition to you, please remember what I told you.
Hmm.
Please let it shape how you view the world and the pandemic. Reflect on how your actions affect your health and the health and safety of others. Realize that your actions directly impact my ability to exist in public spaces. Change your behaviors and make society welcoming to disabled and chronically ill people.
That's just perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to use the words of long haulers here. So, next quote,
Yeah.
don't make us feel like a burden or guilty for you having to accommodate us. And then a visit that's a few hours has the potential to infect us and disable us further. It's a horrible choice to be guilted into. We need safety above all else and are pathologized for it.
Yeah.
Pathologized meaning we're made to feel like we're being crazy. We're made to feel like there's something wrong with us for trying to protect ourselves, despite that the research supports our position.
So these are all things telling you what to do. So in case you're not sure how to enact these things, here are some great examples from the community of amazing friends and allies that really supported some of our community members.
Yeah, so the question again, just to reiterate, is how can friends and family be more supportive? So this person said they could take on more of the mental load when we do hang out. I had one friend recently ask what kind of things I would be up for doing, and I said sitting outside somewhere quiet. She showed up with a little picnic and said we could hang out in my apartment gardens or take a short drive to a quiet outdoor space. She asked how long I wanted to stay there and monitored the time for me. She was happy to wear a mask in the car. It was so lovely to have an experience of hanging out with someone where they did all the planning and I was able to just relax and enjoy it a lot more. I also just felt really cared for and seen. That is
Oh,
love.
that is
That's
love.
love.
That is amazing. Someone else responded saying, yes, everyone has been really understanding and sweet about it. I'm so lucky to have such friends and family. Recently, my brother had his birthday, and of course, we had family come by. Everything happened outside. Nobody had any kind of cold symptoms or sick. My parents and grandparents also wore masks, and everyone kept their distance. All the people I live with, my parents and brother, took nose sprays for protection, had hand sanitizer on hand, and also used a mouthwash. Normally, something like that stresses me out, but I felt like everyone helped me make it a fun and safe event. I really, really appreciate that. Also, last year, everyone tested negative before we had Christmas together, so that's really nice. I'm feeling really anxious, but also pretty confident that we'll be all right this holiday season.
That is family, man. Gives me the warm
Yeah,
fuzzies.
round of applause for them.
Yes. All right, next story. My sister-in-law and parents both bought Plus Life testers, which I appreciate so much, even if not everybody, quote, gets why I insist on testing. So I'm accommodated, but not everyone understands. My sisters-in-law are really great, though, and my parents do try. And that's lovely, like
Oh,
to actually
that's
invest in
lovely.
a piece of equipment that not only is going to keep you safe, but is going to give them
Yeah,
information about how to
yeah.
protect themselves. And taking that extra step is really important.
One final quote in this section is, everyone in my life respects me and takes me seriously. I know I'm really lucky.
Mm,
It shouldn't be luck. You shouldn't consider yourself to be lucky to be
I
taken
know.
seriously and be respected, but sadly, this is our reality, so
We
I'm so
all
happy
deserve
for
that.
you.
Yeah, whoever
Yeah.
you are,
Yeah.
we're cheering for you.
Yeah, all of these quotes got me thinking about my bestie and how when I was slowly able to leave the house again and socialize, she accommodated me and meeting me in a very local cafe outside, and we would meet up for like an hour. And she made this like she her travel time to come and see me was longer than the time she spent with me. And we would just like really chill, sit there and knit together or spin together, spin not the physical activity, but like spinning yarn, so wool.
Yeah, not like
And it was
cycling.
not cycling, no. Sadly, she moved away now, but being able to see her has been so good for my mental and physical well-being. And
Mhm.
having those kinds of friends is just so important. So I'm so happy for everyone who has that. And I hope that everyone who doesn't have that yet will be able to find that kind of person who will show up for them.
I guess one more thing to mention about like what not to do. So this was a
Yes.
really great quote that we all just kind of felt in our bones. So it's a little bit spicy, but
This person
sometimes
really said it all.
I know, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. So here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Just shut up with your unsolicited advice already. You're not a doctor, and you have no right to tell us what could cure us. Be kind, be empathetic, and don't say, I get tired a lot too when I talk about my fatigue. It's not the same. It doesn't compare at all. And instead of expecting me to adjust and force myself through these kinds of gatherings, ask me how you can accommodate me when planning. Ask me if I'll be able to attend if you do it like this or like that. Ask what I can eat so that I don't have to bring my own food. Be proactive and care about me enough to actually include me properly.
Gosh, this
And
person has some pent-up anger here.
I feel it because it's like, yeah, I mean, these are simple
Yes.
things that like we it might seem like a lot for someone else to think about, but during the holidays, people are thinking about
Yeah.
other people already. They're thinking, what does so and so's favorite cookie? I want to make so and so's
Hmm.
favorite cookie. I want to um, look at so and so's Christmas list if they're celebrating Christmas and like, find what they want, what they enjoy. That shouldn't stop just because someone has more needs, right? Like
Yeah.
think about how can we include this person that's in our life that we love that has some limitations, and I promise you'll be happier for it, because the result is a happier relationship, less
Yeah.
tense, right?
Yeah, and I guess besides everything we've said so far, we want to reiterate how important it is to be ready to create a COVID safe space. So have high quality tests on hand if possible. If you live in a place where high quality tests don't exist, then find other solutions. Be ready to
Mhm.
find solutions. Ask the long hauler in your friend group or in your family, how can I accommodate you with no high quality tests on hand? How can I make you feel safe? And be ready to implement what this person says without making them feel crazy or unreasonable for asking for these things.
You can become that person, someone who shows up for us, meets us where we're at, and takes the necessary precautions. That's why we created the Allied Cheat Sheet. It's a thoughtful list of actions you can take to help us feel welcome and included, along with things to avoid saying or doing. Every long hauler's experience is unique, but we gathered input from as many people as possible to make this resource as inclusive and helpful as it can be.
So now all of the allies who have been listening to this podcast episode have learned so much about how to be a good ally, to support us, how to make us feel safe. And all the long haulers who are listening to this hopefully feel less alone and have learned some
Mm.
very helpful coping skills and energy management skills that will help them get through the holiday as flare-free and crash-free as possible. We wish all of you a very wonderful holiday season, the best possible one, and remember that you are not alone. So many of us are
Mhm.
struggling. And if you feel like you can benefit from talking to fellow long haulers, the COVID Long Haulers podcast server and so many other online communities exist and will welcome you.
So, this wraps up today's episode. If you have any feedback, any thoughts on the scripts on what was helpful, what wasn't helpful, or if anything was missing, please let us know. You can contact us on our email address, which is covidlonghaulers podcast@gmail.com, which we'll add to the show notes, or on Instagram via DMs.
We would really appreciate any and all feedback you have, as we are just long haulers who are learning as we go.
As a reminder, while our discussions offer medical related insights, this is not medical advice. Always consult your healthcare team with any of your medical concerns. For our listeners interested in joining our Discord community, find the link in the description to connect with us. We aim to release episodes every other month, recognizing that each person's experience with long COVID is unique. So please subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. Until next time, this is the COVID Long Haulers podcast signing off. See you on the next one.